John, you're in a new car this year in GT Cup, aren't you? Tell us about it.
Yeah, the new 570 McLaren, picked it up new this year. A lot different to the Ginetta GT H car, but a little bit more sophistication, a little bit more prep work, a little bit heavier. So it's a different drive altogether, but we're having fun with it, and we've so far kept it on the track. So.
How are you finding conditions this weekend at Snetterton?
It's drying, so it's getting greasy, very unpredictable conditions, but it's the same for everybody.
It's a change from the last couple of seasons where I had a Ginetta GT4. Decided to make the change because of the BOP was starting to penalise the Ginetta in terms of speed. So yes, I've upgraded to the new 718 Cayman. Getting used to it. In the dry, I'm still off the pace, but I think that's more me than the car.
How are you finding the difference between the Ginetta and the Porsche Cayman?
It's very different. I mean, the Cayman is faster, it's heavier and shorter wheelbase, so first time out you try and drive it like a Ginetta and it doesn't work.
So let's have a look at the grid for the pit stop race then. It's Richard Chamberlain and Graham Desile on row number 1, with Tom Webb and Lachy Christoforou on row 2. Graham Tilley and Sander Mortensen on 3. John Whitehouse lines up with Chris Prosser on row number 4, and it's Chris Murphy and Frank Mortensen that sit there on row number 5. Josh Jackson and David Franklin on row 6. Brent Millage and Del Shelton on row number 7. James Simons and John Seal on row number 8. And Mal Sanford on his own on row number 9. Seamus Jennings, the team have had to go to Germany to pick up parts for his car. So the circuit is dry, but there's rain in the air, and a few cars have rolled the dice and started on wet tyres here. Richard Chamberlain is on slicks, he's on pole position. The lights go out. Graham Desile alongside another car that's on slick tyres, and Tom Webb looking to try and propel himself into the lead of the race here. A great start for the Lamborghini, another driver on slick tyres. The cars that started on wets, Lachy Christoforou starting from the pit lane because he came in after a spin on the outlap. Del Shelton in the BMW has opted for wet tyres, as has Chris Murphy in the Aston Martin. But other than that, everybody else is on slick tyres on what are already starting to become spits of rain that are getting ever heavier. And this is really going to spice things up. There is the BMW of Del Shelton, the white car with a blue tail end to it. He's on wet tyres, and already you can see that is making a difference. Tom Webb very gingerly round through Palmer. Graham Tilley takes a really wide sweep through the left-hander to try and seek out some grip somewhere in these deteriorating conditions. Now, for the moment, it is a bit too wet for slicks, but I'm not sure it's actually wet enough just as yet for wet tyres, so it's going to be a difficult decision for the drivers to make. It is a pit stop race. They will have to come into the pits at some point, but it's so early in the race, the pit window isn't open, and if you come in now, you're going to have to make a second stop. So, into the pit lane, it is Brett Millage dives for the pit lane. There's a spin for John Seal in the tricky conditions. He rotates the Lamborghini coming out of Wilson, and there is also the McLaren heading off the circuit. That is the championship leading car, just going to show how difficult the conditions are now. Graham Tilley is in, he's opting for wet tyres, and everybody is pouring into the pit lane to change from slicks onto wets, other than those 3 cars which made the right decision and started on the wets in the first place. And this could really play well into the hands of the number 27 Ferrari of Lachy Christoforou, who had a spin on the outlap on his slick tyres, opted to come in and change onto the wets immediately. Number 71, Del Shelton, now leads the race at the wheel of his BMW. He was another one of the drivers that had the foresight to opt for those wet tyres, and he leads the race as everybody else files their way out of the pit lane. And you can see now the enormous rooster tails of spray that are coming off the back of the cars. It is properly wet. There is no decision other than wet tyres now. There's number 27, Lachy Christoforou. That's the car that I said came into the pits on the formation lap to change onto wet tyres. Tom Webb now also looking to see what he can do after he came into the pit lane to change onto his wet tyres. And you can see that the conditions have changed totally since the beginning of the race. Graham Tilley under pressure from Lachy Christoforou, who's going to squeeze the Ferrari up the inside of the Nissan. Graham fights back though on the way out of the corner, but it will be Lachy Christoforou that grabs the place away and now starts to work that Ferrari well and truly up towards the sharp end of the order. He'll be closing in on Del Shelton's BMW before too much longer. In fact, there is Del. Here is the other Ferrari 488 we've got in the field. New car this weekend for Graham and Dan Dazil, the Ferrari 488. This is the car of Tom Webb now, starting to move up through the order. He was going quite well. Of all of the cars that started on slicks, in the damp conditions he was going well, but had to pit for those wets, and now he is slowly working his way back up through the order once more. And we'll see as to where he can end up in the end, because we know Tom Webb and the Team Webb Lamborghini this year have been going well. There's Richard Chamberlain. He's had an off, just going to show how tricky the conditions are. The Porsche having had a spin, he should be able to get some traction on the very wet grass now and rejoin the circuit, but all of the time has been lost and the damage has been done. Through goes Lucky Cristoforo now ahead of the Porsche. Now, Lackey, of course, hasn't had to do an extra pit stop because he started from the pit lane, having come in after the formation lap to change onto those wet tyres, and now that puts the number 27 Ferrari into the lead of the race. He will hand the car over during the pit stop window to ex-single-seater star and A1 GP champion Adam Carroll. So that car is in a strong position. Del Shelton also going beautifully well at the wheel of his BMW. The number 41 Lotus has had a few issues throughout the course of the weekend, but appears to be going fine at the moment. That's in the hands of James Simons for the first part of the race. Fraser Smart will take over for part two. And here's Tom Webb at the wheel of his Lamborghini, still trying to carve his way up through the order. The Lamborghini going well. Tom doing all of the driving today. It will be brother James that will do all of the driving tomorrow. And this is also now John Seal working his way back up into contention, fighting away with Richard Chamberlain, the Lamborghini. Both of those cars, remember, having had spins in what are unbelievably tricky conditions here at Snetterton. Onto the brakes, in towards the right-hand hairpin at Wilson. Again, you can see Richard Chamberlain not taking the usual racing line, just taking a slightly wider arc through the corner, trying to seek out the grip on the very wet tarmac as the spray is thrown into the face of John Seal's Lamborghini that sits behind, turns his way through the left-hander at Palmer, and if anything now is looking to put a bit more daylight between himself and that orange Lamborghini. Richard Chamberlain in Group GTO, as is the Lamborghini that John Seal drives, and that will be handed over to Jamie Stanley for part two of the race. Problems for Del Shelton at the end of the Bentley straight. The BMW now, I think that was a snatched break, which means that he's got to take to the grass and should be able to rejoin the circuit. But again, such speed you're carrying, and there is an off also, and that is one of the Top Cats Racing Marcus Mantis cars. That's the number 51 car of Frank Mortensen that's also off. We're now into the pit window, so the cars reappear back into the pits. John Seal, the first of those to come in and blink and hand the car over to Jamie Stanley. And here also is now number 19, which is Graham Dazil, giving way to son Dan Dazil. So everybody filing their way into the pit lane. Race leader is in, number 27, Lucky Cristoforo, about to hand the car over to Adam Carroll. Out of the pit lane comes number 10, which is Mal Sanford, driving on his own this weekend for Whitebridge Motorsport. But with the pit stop window open, all of the cars filing their way in, including the number 79 car, which is going to be handed over to Steve Chandler for part two of the race. Graham Tilley also exiting pit road. So it's a very, very busy part of the race now as all of the mandatory pit stops are taking place. Into the pit lane comes Tom Webb. That Lamborghini has been going well. It was leading the race before the conditions started to worsen. Now that he's on his wet tyres, he's worked his way back up through the order, so could be one to watch out for in part two of the race, Tom Webb. Jamie Stanley splashing his way out of Agostini on board the green Lamborghini that's just been vacated by John Seal. The JMH Automotive prepared car should go well in the hands of the former British GT racer, who's been a regular in GT Cup over the course of the last few years and is always one of the quick pro drivers for sure. Effortless to work his way past the Group GTH car of Brent Millage, such is the power that the Lamborghini puts out relative to the Cayman. But Brent Millage is still at this stage leading Group GTH and going very well at the wheel of that Porsche. Here comes erstwhile race leader Del Shelton. It's not surprising that he's lost the lead of the race because the more powerful cars are working their way through, including this one, the Lamborghini of Tom Webb, who has briefly picked up the lead of the race again during the course of the pit stop window. This is a battle in Group GTH that's going on. Brent Millage under huge pressure from the Whitebridge Motorsport Aston Martin of Chris Murphy, but it's still just the Cayman ahead of the Aston Martin. And after all of the rain, the sky's now starting to look a little bit clearer. It's still going to remain wet for the rest of the race, but I think the heavy rain has largely now cleared, which means that the circuit conditions may well improve. Now that all of the pit stops are out of the way, it's put the number 27 Ferrari, the 488 that's now in the hands of Adam Carroll, the Irishman, back into the lead of the race. So the Ferrari is leading as it turns its way out of Oggy. Sideways is Del Shelton in the BMW, looking to try and counter the oversteer with a little bit of opposite lock there, but the BMW almost came unstuck as down the Bentley straight powers Adam Carroll. Now this is the car that leads Group GT-A at the moment. The number 79 Ginetta that was in the hands of Chris Prosser for the first part of the race is now in the hands of Steve Chandler. And it does look as though they could well be on for group win number 8 of the season, because we are now on to the last lap of the race. Richard Chamberlain working his way past Chris Murphy's Aston Martin. Richard Chamberlain after his spin further down through the order, but the win is going to go the way of the FF Corsa Ferrari of Lucky Cristoforu and Adam Carroll, who come through to claim their 5th group win of the 2019 GT Cup season, and a dominant win at that. 1 minute and 45 seconds up the road from the second place car of Tom Webb. Confirmation of the results then. Lucky Cristoforum and Adam Carroll claimed the win from Tom Webb in second place and Graham and Dandazil in third place. John Seal and Jamie Stanley in fourth claimed Group GTO, with Richard Chamberlain in fifth and Brett Millage in sixth place ahead of Graham Tilley, Del Shelton, Chris Murphy, Steve Ruston and John Whitehouse. In 11th place, Chris Prosser and Steve Chandler claimed their 8th group win in Group GTA of the 2019 season, with Mal Sanford completing the top 12. So happy scenes on the podium. An intriguing race that in the end went the way of the Ferrari. Let's catch up with some of the drivers.
I do drive better in the wet normally, and I knew I'd fallen behind, so I just went for it. I gave it all it had, for me at least anyway.
Made the right choice on the tyres really early on, and it just got worse all the way through, so we just had to manage it at the front, so good job by everybody.
At 10:30 this morning, we thought our weekend was over. The guys have pulled a Herculean effort to get the car back out, and the fact we've come away with a second and a win is just massive testament to Jason and the boys.
It really was, because when it first came in, it didn't look like that bad, did it, when the bodywork was still on it? But once the bodywork started coming off, it was like, ouch.
Yeah, it's not the big stuff, it's all the little fiddly stuff that just takes time to fix. And you know, we had some bits couriered down from Cheshire sort of during the course of the day to get the car back out, and we'll still get some more bits from Spa overnight, hopefully, to finish the car and be back out tomorrow, have another go.
Yeah, it's really pleasing to have the first win in the new car. I struggled this morning for pace in the dry, but what can I say? What a terrific car in the wet, as the times proved. It was interesting, slip slide in a way, but she was a beauty in the wet. I just need to find the pace.
I just couldn't believe it. 2 laps from the end, drive shaft, saying to Will, when's the flag going out, when's the flag going out? It was the only thing I was waiting for. It's the only thing I was interested for, was giving the boys a result after all the hassle in testing yesterday and race 1. What can I say? I think it was well deserved from the team for more than anything else.
Me and Chris put in a big effort, and then Chris being on slicks at the beginning as well. I can't imagine how hard that has been. It was really hard on wets as it was. So, but yeah, we both put in as good time as we can, just making sure we didn't spin out or do any silly mistakes, just keeping the pace, and then yeah, now we're here. So
our car was set up really for dry, so it was a bit of a shame it did pour. But as Stephen was saying then, you know, when we switched to the wet tyres, it was even then still difficult to drive, so it was a really great drive by Stephen to bring that home.